welcome to today's random little video. As you can see, I'm in a slightly different background. I thought I would film downstairs and just sit on the sofa. I say sofa, this is a little snuggle chair. I'm not taking up like a 3-seater sofa to myself right now. I am basically going to be talking to you about all girly kind of problems and essentially become a bit of a big sister and just give you some of my normal girly advice from a girl who is 23 and just living life, not really knowing what she's doing. The video was kind of sparked from a Q&A that I was going to do. I say Q&A, I got a few questions in. Obviously I don't have a big following, I wasn't expecting like masses of questions, but I did get a few, so thank you if you did ask a question. If you do want to ask me any questions so I can film a more random Q&A, then do leave them in the comments below or send me a little Instagram DM if you don't want a public comment. That's absolutely fine. My Instagram is listed in the description below if you do want to send me a question. But the questions that I did receive were all talking about a very similar thing and kind of had a bit of a theme running to them, and they were all based around like girl problems, and I guess this is my like big sisterly advice kind of video. I mean, I don't have any siblings, but if I did, this would be my like big sister advice. And I basically just wanted to sit down and like have a bit of a chat. So I've grabbed myself a drink. I actually have 2 drinks. I've got some water and a little bit of the Coke that was left and some strawberry laces. The first main like girly thing that I want to talk about in this video is periods. And basically, periods are the worst. They suck, and I got asked if I have any advice on how to deal with them. I'm really bad at handling periods. I get insane mood swings, and it's usually not on the days that I am having my actual period. It's usually in the lead up to it, and once I then get a period, I'm like, oh okay, that makes sense as to why I felt rubbish and was really annoyed and anxious at everything last week. That's kind of how that usually goes. And normally I'll have fallen out with Josh the week before or something and I'll be like, oh okay, that makes sense now. So if you don't know and you're new here, Josh is my boyfriend and we live together, and bless him, he has to put up with a lot, especially when it's that sort of time. I have both a blessing and a curse in terms of I don't get regular periods. If this is TMI for anyone, I don't really care. I'm quite happy to talk about this on the internet. Firstly, because basically half of the population go through this and the other half know someone that goes through this. Therefore, they should also be educated. So I don't really care about talking about periods online. I had a point to this and now I don't know where I was going, but basically I don't get regular periods, and that means that it's both a blessing and a curse for me, because one, they should be regular by now and I really need to get that looked at, and honestly I think a lot of it is to do with my diet because I don't eat properly, so that is a big factor of that. And in a small way it is a little bit of a blessing because I don't have to put up with it every single month. Perfectly normal to have irregular periods up until a point. If it's consistently irregular, then it's maybe just something to get looked at, and that is what I'm gonna do because I hate going to the doctor and have a lot of anxiety and stuff around health things, so I try and avoid it, but I think it's about time I go now. But basically how I deal with my periods when I get them, I get really bad period cramps. So about a day before I'm getting like cramps and things, and then I get really bad period cramps for the first 2 to 3 days, depending on how bad it is. It varies, and sometimes it is so painful that I do have to like sort of stop a second and just take a minute and then like breathe and move on. Because I kind of get it in like waves, and sometimes it is a really painful cramp and then other times it's just what it is and it's just normal. I've just got to put up with it basically. But the things that I found that really help me are having less sugar, because sugar seems to make it worse for me. I don't know the science behind it, I'm not a scientist or a doctor or anything, but I know for a fact that sugar will make my period cramps worse. Obviously you're craving chocolate and things at that point, but I'll generally have it in the form of a hot chocolate, obviously without the whipped cream and marshmallows and everything. I'll just have a hot chocolate. And the other thing that I always do without fail, on the first 2 days of my period, I will have a hot water bottle on hand at all times. If I am home, chances are I'll be curled up on the sofa or in bed with a hot water bottle and a hot chocolate, because it just makes me feel better. And I like to not wear tight clothing because I notice that if I'm in like tight jeans and everything's kind of sucked in and pulled together, that also makes my cramps worse because I can't bloat properly, which is what I normally do on a period. My bloating gets really bad. So if I'm in restrictive clothing, I can't do that, and my body naturally just wants to bloat more. So I like to wear kind of loose clothing and just kind of slob out a little bit really while I'm on my period, which I think is fair because I'm suffering, you know. So coming off the back of that, some people say that they actually use birth control as a method to control and regulate their periods. If I'm being totally honest, I'm not on any form of birth control, which is a bit strange because I know a lot of people do have birth control methods that they use and stand by. Obviously, do whatever you want, look into everything and do all of your research and just make sure you know what you're getting into. Having birth control is down to the individual person. No matter what anyone says, your family, friends, partner, nobody can force you to go on birth control. So if you have problems with your health, either physical or mental, then don't force yourself to take it, because you are the only one that is going to seek the consequences from taking it if it makes it worse for you. And obviously, you know, talk to your doctors about things like that, because it is a big thing and it is a big decision, and I'm not on it purely because of all the side effects that come with it. And I already suffer from mental health problems, let alone going on the pill and making it worse, and there is just a lot involved to it that I don't personally like. That is my personal decision and no one has ever forced me into it, but I can see how people would, especially if you're with a partner and you are sexually active and they want you to be on the pill as a form of protection. I can totally understand how people can get into that situations and put pressure on themselves, and I'm here to tell you, don't put pressure on it, because no matter which form you use of birth control, whether it's the pill or the coil or whatever, just make sure you do your research, don't be forced into it, and do it for your sake. So like I say, I'm not on birth control and Josh is perfectly fine with that. And I can't believe I'm about to say this on the internet, but if I'm being totally honest, then I didn't actually have sex with anyone until we moved into this house, and that is purely because I wanted to wait for the person that I felt most comfortable with. And I feel like you'll know when you're with the right person and when you're comfortable and when you're happy. People younger than me were having sex and it was talked about in school and like all of this kind of stuff, and honestly I was really put off by the whole thing, because all I got from school was basically, if you have sex you'll end up pregnant and with a baby basically immediately, so don't do it is basically what I got from that. So I am still working on my relationship, thinking about sex and talking about it and doing it, because honestly I was kind of put off for a really long time, and it's not something you have to be ashamed of. It caused a lot of anxiety for me. Even though I've done it now, I still get anxious around it, and it is just one of those things that it's really hard to get out of your own head in that situation when all you've been told is don't do it. And if there are other people out there like me, then I sympathise with you, because I know what it's like to feel like it's not something you get pleasure out of. My biggest advice to you is don't do it till you're ready, because one, you'll probably regret it, and two, it won't be as good for you, it won't be pleasurable, it won't be something you enjoy, you'll just be in your head the whole time and won't feel comfortable. And that was how I felt, so I waited, and I am really glad I did. And I also got a couple of questions asking about my body image and how I try and be confident when I'm not feeling it, because I have spoken online before about how I struggle to feel confident in myself, and it's a journey, honestly. It is a long process trying to feel confident in yourself when you look in the mirror and you don't like what you see. And this doesn't just apply to women necessarily, but whether you are male or female or whatever you identify as, if you go online and compare yourself to every other photo out there, people only put the best versions of themselves online. I was following a lot of people for a really long time that made me actually feel rubbish about myself, because I'd constantly compare myself. I'd see them looking glamorous out at these fancy events and things, and just think to myself, my life is nowhere near theirs, and I am their age or a year younger or a year older. And I'd constantly see stuff about people achieving their goals and feel like I was totally inadequate because I just wasn't in that place, and I'm still not. And I honestly don't know what I want out of my life other than a house, kids, dog, family. That's kind of been my goal all along, and I'm just not someone that dresses up for fancy occasion things. I love it, don't get me wrong, I love putting my heels on and doing my makeup differently and going out into the world presenting this version of myself, but that's just it. That is a version of me. It's still me, it's just a version that I would prefer people to see, and that's what I'm happy to post because I feel confident because I look like that. We don't look like that all the time. No one does. Nobody looks like their Instagram profiles every day. If you are doing that, then well done, because I cannot maintain that standard all the time, and honestly I don't think most of us can. So I think it is basically a situation where you need to kind of assess the fact that they are out at this thing and they want to look good for that thing, and they want to post about it because they feel good looking good for that thing, if that makes any sense. You just need to remind yourself that that is one version of you and one version of them, and at the moment you're feeling like you're not adequate because you're not that version of yourself right now. But you can be, and you will be confident, but you need to remember to be confident in yourself in all versions, because I feel like that's what the key to being confident is. It's not being confident when you put makeup and stuff on and feeling like, yes, this is who I am and I'm confident. It helps, but it helps towards a version of you. I'm not one to talk because I'll be sat on the sofa, Josh will look over at me and I'll be sat like this with my double chins and looking at my phone, or look at me or say something or do something and I'm like, oh, don't look at my chin. Just a constant thing that I'm thinking about, and it's like, why do we do this to ourselves? It's pointless. So I've obviously mentioned loosely about anxiety and stuff, and I know that mental health is such a big topic, and I wouldn't be sat here saying I have anxiety and depression if I didn't know I had anxiety and depression. A lot of people will just have a sad day and something will go wrong and they'll feel low, and that's fine, that's a normal human response. But the difference between that and depression is that depression will spiral, and it doesn't have to come from an event. And I struggle to get up some days, I struggle to have motivation most days. On the one hand, my anxious brain is overworking, going, you need to be doing this, this, this and this, why aren't you doing this, and like constantly on the go. And then my depression brain will be like, we can't, there's no point, why are you doing this to yourself, why are you even bothering? And it's just a constant catch-22, and you're caught between two minds of whether or not you are good enough to do something. Obviously I'm talking about all of this from my experience, but it's just something that I've learned to kind of deal with. I don't have panic attacks in the same way that I used to have panic attacks. I would have what I called a full-blown panic attack, which was overthinking, then my heart raced, then I felt sick, then I felt faint and I was dizzy and my whole body would shake. And that for me is what I call a full-blown panic attack, because that is all the symptoms that I hate in one go. Whereas I will have panic attacks now where I'll just get sweaty, or I'll just breathe a bit quicker, or my heart rate will go quicker, or my voice shakes. All these little things kind of equate to me panicking now, and I'm getting so much better at being able to catch triggers and when I'm overthinking things and rationalizing it in my head. I find it really helpful to isolate anxiety in those situations, and I think that's really helped me a lot, because if I think anxiety is not part of me, it's just something that I deal with, it's a separate entity. So if I can isolate it and know that by having it, it's causing this reaction, then I can isolate the anxiety before I react to that if that makes sense. The second anxious thoughts pop up in my head, or I'm overthinking something and it's not rational, I still overthink it. I'm naturally an overthinking person, but I don't let it affect me in the same way anymore. So just as an example that I've just pulled from the top of my head, I used to be really bad at making phone calls, and I would always have to write down what I said beforehand in like full paragraphs so that I could anticipate what they were going to say, and then I had a response for it, so I didn't have to think on my feet. Being at work where I became a supervisor of a shop, I had to answer that phone, and it would be things that, one, I either hadn't been told about and just had to deal with on the spot and had to be equipped for, and two, if I did know about it, I would overthink it and then I would panic while I was on the phone and it would be even worse. So I ended up having to kind of overcome that, and I honestly think that working customer service really helped me with that, because you learn that people are just people, and that person on the other end of the phone may know what they're doing and may be absolutely fine and confident on the phone, but me, I'm not. But then they could think that I'm the same and I am confident on the phone when I'm not, which means that if they could think that about me, I can think the same about them and think that they could also be like me and be anxious about it, and they may not like that phone call either. Once I started to kind of realise that, and that everyone else had this issue, and that everyone else wasn't perfect and had anxiety about stuff just like I did, I kind of saw the world for what it was, in terms of we're all just people living on a planet who don't really know how to get through every day or what the point of it all is, and I am sat here worrying about talking to someone on a phone that I may have never even met and may never meet. I started to just turn those paragraphs that I was writing into bullet points of things that I knew I wanted to bring up, and I've done the same for this video. I have bullet points, whereas previously I'd be writing out paragraphs of things that I wanted to say, so I knew that I wasn't going to go off topic. I'm going to have to leave it here because my camera battery is dying, which is really helpful, but I hope that this has been helpful to you and you have got something out of it. If you have, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear, and I'd also love to hear your take on any of the things that I have said. Obviously, if I have accidentally offended anyone in this video, I really don't mean to. I am just speaking from my experience and how I have handled each situation, so I hope it's been helpful, and if you did enjoy it and it has been helpful, please give it a thumbs up. Do subscribe if you want to see more from me, and hit the notification bell to get notified every time I post, and I will see you all very, very soon. Bye!